Hello, my name is Jenny Villier, and I'm Senior Editor of the Wealth Counsel Quarterly. It is my pleasure to sit down today with Stan Miller, whose work in the area of legacy planning inspired the theme of the January 2021 issue. Stan is a founder and principal of Wealth Counsel and managing partner in Stan Miller Law in Little Rock, Arkansas. In 2019, he published a book, Your American Legacy: Powerful Strategies That Instill Lasting Values for Generations. His book provides guidance for leaving future generations with knowledge to build a successful life, including family stories, traditions, heirlooms, life lessons, and experiences. This book is the vision of a community of individuals who desire to preserve and pass on their legacy, fusing financial, legal, and legacy planning into a movement of positive cultural transformation. Stan believes that estate planners can bring wisdom and insight to the estate planning process and can fundamentally change the trajectory of a family for generations to come. Stan, I really appreciate the opportunity to sit down with you today, and welcome.
Well, Jenny, thanks for that introduction. That's really terrific. You really distilled everything I was trying to say in the book into just a little short paragraph there. So, thank you for connecting with that.
Absolutely. And I wanted to start today by just having you tell us a little bit about what legacy means to you.
Yes, legacy is a fuzzy word and it's used a lot in a lot of contexts. But in the specific way that I think about it, I think about legacy as being really about impact, about the impact that we make with our lives on other people, on our family, on the community, and in a larger sense, really on the world. Legacy is normally legacy is something people notice about you, long after you're gone. But one of the missions of my book was to raise a level of consciousness about the idea of legacy, so that people began to recognize that they actually have the power to imagine what they want their legacy to be, and then to take specific positive actions to create the legacy that they want. But it is about impact. It's about, what kind of family do I want? What kind of grandkids, great grandkids do I want? What impact do I want to have on my community? What impact do I want my family members having on my community? It's really about impact.
Thank you. And how did you become interested in adding legacy planning services to your estate planning practice? How did you identify that they dovetail so well and that it was something to incorporate into your existing practice?
Well, over the years, one of the things as estate planners, and I'm sure that everybody who's been an estate planner for any period of time has had it happen, where you're having a conversation. All the conversations we have are fairly intimate. We're sitting there talking to people. We're asking about family. We're asking about the things that matter to them. And it doesn't happen every time, but it happens often enough that I noticed it, that people would begin to tell me about their aspirations for the impact they want to have. And sometimes they would tear up. We'd have to get out the tissues, And what I found is that I was intimidated by that, because I didn't have the tools to be responsive to the need. We had these warm, fuzzy emotional experiences in the interaction with clients, but then we'd move on beyond that because I didn't have anything to say. And it was incredibly frustrating to me to perceive a need that clients had and not have a set of solutions I could offer. And so that's really what prompted me to write the book. I wrote the book for me. I really wrote the book for myself because I wanted to be able to move into that conversation more proactively, but with confidence that when I found that clients were really motivated to have that conversation, I had a rich toolkit to introduce to them so that we could really do something about it and not just cry about it for a minute.
Do you find that it's difficult to get clients to engage with you on that deeper level? to reveal their goals for their children and for younger family members?
No, it's not. In fact, uh, I think the difficulty is just, from the planner's perspective, it's the confidence we have in being open to have the conversation. I actually think, I really think that an estate planning interview, the initial interview in particular, is a magical moment. I, I've, I like to say it's almost like there's a crack in the universe, because in that really precious moment of time when you sit there with people and you're asking questions that drive estate planning decisions, it's almost like the universe opens up and people are willing to engage in that moment about things that they don't ordinarily think about, when they're driving on the freeway, whenever they're at work, they're playing golf. But when they're having this conversation with us, in that moment, they're really engaged in thinking about their mortality, what their life means. Estate planning, the work that we do for clients is it's not like buying a car or going to dinner. An estate plan doesn't taste that good. It's not a great driving experience. You only are willing to invest time and money in an estate plan because there are people out there that you love and care about. Because for the most part, the work we do as estate planners really benefits our clients' family after they're gone. That's not totally true, but by and large, the motivator is our clients have people, they have relationships they care about enough that they want to make certain that they don't leave a mess, that they don't tie people up in court, they don't create unnecessary taxes. But the actions that people take in initiating a conversation with us about estate plans is really motivated because they care about other people. The same thing is true, by the way, when they sit down to talk to a life insurance professional about life insurance. Nobody wants life insurance. It doesn't taste that good. It's not fun to drive. You only would invest the money in life insurance products if there were people that you cared about and that you wanted to impact after they were gone. And so I think the moment in time that we have, particularly in the initial interview, is a magical moment when we can really open people up to this conversation. And my experience is that they want to have the conversation. The reluctance has been on the part of the planner for fear that we're wading off into something that is really intimate, something really intimidating. And one of the things I know about certainly about lawyers for sure is we don't want to go into a space in a conversation with clients if we don't have answers, if we don't have solutions. And so when clients begin to reach out to us and connect at what I call a legacy level, I think there's a real reluctance on the part of planners to find a way to deflect from that because we don't know what to do. We don't have a toolkit. But when you have the toolkit and you have the confidence that you have real solutions that you can bring, more than just let's get out the Kleenex and cry about it for a couple of minutes, then I think it's not difficult. I think it's the clients that want to have that conversation.
I absolutely agree. Having recently, well, I guess it's been 5 years now and definitely time for an update. But when I had my own estate plan prepared, I felt innately that I wanted to have these conversations with the attorney that was preparing my estate plan. But the sense I had in that meeting was that having those conversations were a bit off topic, not the reason that I was there. Right. So I really agree with everything you just said. I do think clients are the ones that want to have these conversations. And you mentioned in your book that your transition from hourly rates to flat fees provided comfort to your clients and encouraged them to spend the time talking with you and building a relationship of trust. Are there any other strategies that you would recommend to estate planning attorneys who are interested in incorporating discussions related to legacy into these client meetings?
Oh yeah, there's a ton. I think I have in my book, I have 10 separate chapters where I introduce different strategies. Just let me mention a couple. One that I use really often now is I encourage clients to create trustee letters. Trustee letters where we create trust, and as most wealth counsel attorneys, we encourage our clients to leave property in testamentary trust rather than leave assets outright for all the reasons that we do. Asset protection, divorce protection, immaturity protection, and sometimes, not all the time, but it's fairly common to have other people as or a bank trust department serve as a trustee. So I think it's really important to write a letter to that trustee, telling them what's in your heart. Why did you do this? What are the outcomes that you want to accomplish? What's your mission for these children, for these grandchildren? Maybe about making sure that we don't damage their work ethic. There are all kinds of motivations that people have. And what I found is that if I provide clients with 2 or 3 examples of a trustee letter, that they really will go home and take the examples I've provided and then come back with their own version of that reflects what was really unique, what was unique for them, their values, their goals, their objectives. So a trustee letter is one really common tool. Another common tool, and we have a number of Wealth Counsel members that do this routinely, is to do audio recordings or video recordings, video interviews with the client, to give the client the opportunity to really tell their story, provide the life lessons, connect with their own history, and share the story of their struggle, their success, get all that captured on a media so that it's preserved and is accessible to family members, for generations after they're gone. Those are a couple things.
Thank you. And as you mentioned, you have a number of other tools and strategies in your book, which I just highlighted the heck out of. I really, really enjoyed your book. And
I'm glad you were able to stay awake through that. That was great.
I really, really enjoyed it. And my husband's going to be reading it next. So thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about the legacy planning pyramid that you developed?
So the legacy planning pyramid was my way of trying to capture visually a way of thinking about the planning process that I have hoped would really move the ball in terms of how the planning community thinks about what it does. And when I say the planning community, I'm certainly speaking to estate planning attorneys here, but I'm also speaking to financial planners as well. There's a real tendency for professionals of every kind, doctors, lawyers, financial advisors, all to get into what I call a professional silo, where they get up in the morning and they're focused on the thing they do. I mean, it makes sense, right? You're focused on, you go to work to make a living and you do this work so that you can pay your mortgage, send your kids to college, build your own retirement savings accounts. And so that's what we do. We get into this silo where we focus on the thing that we do. And what I've discovered is that when we're in a silo, we don't think about the collateral issues that are really relevant to the planning process. So what we've wanted to encourage, and this is not new news to anybody, is that we know that when financial advisors and estate planning attorneys work together with clients to create plans, you get better plans because there's a synergy that results from that interaction, where the financial issues and the legal issues, which impact each other, are addressed comprehensively and in a coordinated way. And so for a long time, it's been the thought that good planning really does require financial advisors and estate planning attorneys to work together in close coordination. The thing that I believe that got left out of that is the belief that once we've done an estate plan that integrates the financial plan and legal plan, that we're done there. And so I developed this this legacy planning pyramid really built on the concept of this psychologist. We all learned in college about Abraham Maslow and the Maslow pyramid, where Maslow said that you really can't connect with people about higher things. You can't talk to people about spiritual matters, for example. If they're hungry, you've got to feed them first. So at the bottom of the pyramid, you've got to do the basic things. And then once you've done the basic things, you've now built a foundation that allows you to move up the pyramid to talk about the more noetic things. And so in the legacy pyramid, what I'm advocating is this idea that, yes, we have to get the financial plan and the legal plan, the legal structure in place that protects financial wealth. But once we've done that, we don't stop. We move to the next level of planning, which is to look at how do we impact the transition of our non-financial wealth. So the legacy pyramid is designed to communicate that idea that we put the legal and the financial pieces in place, but we don't stop there. We move to the next level, which is the non-financial, the legacy issues.
Thank you. You have talked about the benefits of charitable giving, not just for the recipients, but also for the donors. Can you tell us a little about your thoughts about the impact of charitable giving on legacy?
Absolutely. This is, if I could wave my magic wand in every estate plan, I think I would have every client create a donor advised fund at a community foundation. At the very least, there are other ways you can do it, with private foundations and supporting organizations. There are all kinds of things that you can do. But one of the things I've really come to believe from my own experience and from, in my own life, in my own family, and from observing what's happened in the lives of my client families, is that when human beings engage energy and activity around how to impact the world, to impact other people, their community in a positive way, in a way that provides no financial benefit to them, it alters them. It's transformative. It makes them different and better people as a result of that activity. And so one of the things I advocate, and I'm kind of an evangelist for the idea that and particularly, and I would say, and I think this is true in every family, but this is, in my view, it's really critical for wealthy families. Most of the families I work for, and I think this is true by and large for the entire WealthCounsel community, the clients we work for were not born wealthy. Most of them, have built the wealth they have, during their adult lifetime. Their parents didn't leave them large inheritances. I mean, you see that occasionally, but by and large, if I look at my client base, it's almost entirely comprised of people who have wealth made it themselves, and so they experience the world through a prism of recalling the struggle, realizing how critically important work ethic is. There's a certain set of values that they just know intuitively are essential to being able to create and preserve wealth. And what we know is that and by the way, I think by and large, I think the children of our clients that have wealth remember some of that struggle, because most of the clients I have who became wealthy didn't do it instantly or overnight. Their children were teenagers, maybe, whenever it all began to happen. So the kids remember the days when mom and dad lived in in not the nicest house, and they had to worry about money and how to put food on the table. But the grandkids, it's different, because now when the grandkids emerge into the world, they're going to figure out in fairly short order that they're pretty wealthy, and they never have to worry about where their next meal's coming from. If they're, depending on how the plan is structured, they may never have to have a day job. And so I like to have conversations with clients and connect them with this, because I think clients really don't necessarily get this. I think they look at the world through their own prism of struggle, And they project that onto younger generations, not realizing that younger generations are really going to see the world in an entirely different way. And that if they don't do something proactively to embed the values that work into the lives of these younger generations, it's going to be a train wreck. There's data out there that says that in the next 25 or 30 years, there's going to be about 60 to 70 trillion dollars pass hands, mostly from the hands of people that earned the money into the hands of people that didn't earn it. That is something that has never happened ever in the history of mankind. Sociologically, we don't know, whenever that happens on a mass scale, we really don't have our head around what the impact of that will be. 60 or 70 trillion dollars represents about 3.5 times the current gross domestic product of the United States. When that amount of wealth gets dumped on heirs that are not prepared for it and that didn't earn it, the consequences of that are unknowable for us. And so I feel like as planners, we've got a responsibility to connect with clients at this level to get in front of that, because if what happens is this wealth is dropped on heirs that are unprepared to go out and waste it, you could really, the impact that could have, when the resources, the wealth of a nation is dissipated through unwise investing, unwise spending, it has real consequences for the country. And so I feel like as planners, we have a real responsibility, and I believe that the charitable piece of this, incorporating a family foundation or incorporating even a donor advised fund, is a big part of the antidote to this, because I believe that if you can get your family to sit down on a regular basis, once a year at Thanksgiving, or ideally more often than that, and have a conversation about how we're going to take some of the wealth that we've created and use that wealth in ways that cannot benefit us, I believe that has a transformative effect on family members and is the best antidote I know for what we now have identified as something called affluenza.
Thank you. And switching gears just a little, travel has been an important legacy tool in your own family. In your book, I really love the story of your travel to Japan with your son, Matt. Could you tell us a little bit about that experience, and also how you view travel as an essential element of personal growth?
So, there's a famous guy, a guy named Rick Steves, who's written all these travel books. You've probably read some of those. And he always talks about how travel is, and this is his phrase. He says, travel is life intensified. We know that when we travel, we're out of our ordinary life. We're in a different place. We're eating different food. Every moment of every day is not subject to routines. We have to think about everything that we do. Where are we going to go to breakfast? Where are we going to go to dinner? What are we going to do? What are we going to see? And I believe that when you engage in those kinds of activities with family, those are collective decisions that get made. When you're talking to the kids about what are we going to go do today? What are we going to see? What are we going to experience? It really does intensify that relationship. One of the best decisions I made as a dad is I made, and I don't know where the idea came from, but I made the decision that whenever my son was about 15, I said, we're going to take a trip. It's just going to be the two of us. And my oldest son, Matt, who's not with us anymore. So this is, the memories I have are really special and really treasured because I don't have him here with me. But I gave him the choice, and I said, where would you like to go in the world? And he chose Japan. We talked about a number of options, but he said, I think, Dad, I think Japan would be more foreign, and that was attractive to him. And so we spent 3 weekends, 2 full weeks, 3 weekends, just the two of us, bumming around Japan. We had the JR pass. We could ride the bullet trains or other trains anywhere we wanted to go. Every day was an experience we got to create. And the experience that really connected me with the power of this was at the end of our trip, we ended up at a hotel in Tokyo. Tokyo was our last stop on this trip. And we're sitting there. I remember this so clearly. We're sitting there on the 19th floor of this hotel. And my son is sitting there with his face in his hands, looking out on the city. And he has a map in one hand, and it's got the map of the subways, and it's got the map of the rail system. And he sat there for about 30 or 40 minutes, and I just watched him, and it was just him looking at the city. But at a point, he stopped, he looked around at me, and he said, "Let's go." And there was this confidence in his voice. And this is a 15-year-old kid, right? And he said, "Let's go." So he took me, and we got on the elevator, went out to the subway, and he guided me all around Tokyo. We took the subway, we took the trains, we went to different parts of the city. And the message I got from him, in that experience was, Dad, I think I have Tokyo figured out. And this is like a city of 30 million people. If I can do Tokyo, I can do anything. And that was an experience I would not have had with him, but for the fact that I created this opportunity for us to share this time together. And so I did, I did a similar trip with my younger son. And, we had similar kinds of experiences where, by just experiencing the world together, we discovered things, met people, did things that you would never do in ordinary life. And so I've become a really big advocate of the idea that travel experience, the investment that you make in travel is the best money you'll spend.
I completely agree. And thank you for sharing that touching story. As an aside, I lived in Japan for a year, in Tokyo specifically. And when I read that part of your book, I was just nodding along with Matt's sentiment that if you can do Tokyo, you can do anything. And I feel like travel, I agree with you as well, that I feel most alive when I'm traveling. And I think that is one of the things that one of the biggest things COVID has stolen from us in the past year. Yeah. So lastly, Stan, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about what you want your legacy to be. And also, how does WealthCounsel fit into your legacy?
So that's a really good question. And that's one I thought about a lot too. WealthCounsel has a community. We have about 3,000 plus law firm members. That represents about 8,000 or 10,000 lawyers. It is potentially a gigantic megaphone. If I can participate, if I can be a change agent that helps planners see the potential of legacy planning, looking back at that pyramid of saying, it's not just integrating financial and legal, but it's integrating financial and legal with the transition of non-financial wealth. If we can open the aperture to how we think about what is planning, to incorporate the idea that legacy planning is part and parcel of every plan. It's not a Band-Aid we occasionally stick on. It is infused into the planning process as an integral part of the planning process. I would like to be able to look back. I'm hoping to live long enough to be able to look back and see that the way the planning community thinks about planning incorporates legacy planning as an essential component. I don't think that's true today. I think it's something that's talked about occasionally. It's something that people stick on as an afterthought. When we're able to infuse legacy planning into the planning process, I believe it has the potential to be culturally transformative. People's lives will be different. People's lives will be better. The impact that we have on the generations to come will be dramatically enhanced. And you think about this, most of us in the planning community are not billionaires, right? I don't have the currency that Bill Gates has, or Jeff Bezos has. I don't have hundreds of billions of dollars. But the unique thing about being a planner is that we have the ability, if we have the tool set and if we have the inspiration to do it, we have the ability to impact the transition of billions of dollars of wealth. If you add up the value of the wealth that our clients have over the span of a career, it's billions of dollars. And if we bring imagination and creativity and wisdom and insight that can inspire clients to see, to look at their own lives, reflect on them, and to maximize their own impact, then as change agents, this relatively small number of us who are in the planning profession can have an incredibly outsized impact on what happens over the next few hundred years in the country and in the world. And so I'm hoping that my legacy is one that that contributes to that change.
I think it will, Stan. Thank you so much for your time and your insight today. And thank you also again for inspiring the theme of this issue of the Wealth Counsel Quarterly. For anyone who is interested in learning about how legacy planning can positively impact your clients' lives, I encourage you to pick up a copy of Stan's book, Your American Legacy. To borrow a quote from Pericles in the first chapter of Stan's book, "What you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others." Stan, thank you for your contributions to this very important aspect of estate planning.
Thanks, Jenny. I appreciate the time today.
Thank you.